I'm very pleased to say that Tidjane Thiam is right here with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Francine.
It's the first time, really, that a U.S. Treasury Secretary comes to Davos. You met with him yesterday, along with other top bankers. Did you get the answers you were looking for?
Well, he mostly came to listen, which is something we absolutely welcome. You know that I'm chairing the financial services governors meetings with Bob Delmond this year, and Secretary Geithner spent more than 2 hours with us yesterday, which was a unique opportunity for a dialogue, because one of the things we've learned in this crisis is that the quality of the dialogue is very, very important for the health of the international financial system, and I think it's very good that those meetings take place because we understand better the objective and concerns of the government, and we can also express ours, which is very good.
Was there a common view amongst the bankers and yourself that was there a message that you wanted to give the U.S. Treasury Secretary?
I think we're in a constant dialogue. Each of our institutions has hundreds of meetings every year with the regulators and the government, so we talk a lot. The way we feel today is that we've survived the worst of the crisis. Initially, the reaction was about surviving. We've now moved in the second phase, which is to try and rebuild a system that is better than the one before. We think a lot has been done, a lot of reforms have gone through, and the individual institutions have been significantly strengthened, capital raised, etc. So we'd like now to have a dialogue about the systemic risk and how, now that the individual pieces have been strengthened, how do you make the whole system more resilient and more robust? And it was a very rich discussion with Secretary Geithner, and I must say that he certainly paid a lot of attention, took a lot of notes, listened, asked a lot of very good questions, so extremely promising.
That's good news. Yes.
Absolutely.
Mr. Thiam, we are talking a lot about the biggest concerns, of course, around the world, and inflation seems something that a lot of CEOs are saying they're worried about, a lot of policymakers. Is there a real inflation problem? Are you concerned about it in the emerging markets?
I am not very concerned, because the reality is that emerging markets, as we know, and that's very good for Prudential, to be honest, are growing very fast, and much faster than the more mature Western economies. And the simple truth is that when an economy grows fast, you have bottlenecks that appear automatically, whether it's transport or energy or any kind of system. Those constraints lead to inflation, and some of that inflation is simply a consequence of a very high growth rate. So that is relatively logical, and we think that those economies will be able to accommodate that. We don't see that as a huge threat in the long term. We don't think that there is a change in the absolute level of price, which would then feed into wage inflation and be negative for the economy as a whole.
What about a slowdown in China? This is something that we've heard over the last couple of days and weeks. The government really tried to crack down on this overexpanding, overheating economy. How will that impact the regions around it, or the region around it, the countries around it, and your business there?
Well, we are in a sector that is relatively insulated vis-à-vis the macroeconomic situation in Asia in general, because penetration is so low. We are still in the growth phase of the market where 1–2% of the customers have the product. So in a way, we're lucky and fortunate that we have, again, many years of very strong growth ahead of us as the middle class develops and grows, and as they adopt our products and use them to save.
And back home in the UK, how concerned are you about the UK economy? There's a lot of talk here in Davos that actually David Cameron may not be doing the right thing, being so aggressive with the austerity cuts.
Well, the UK economy, we know that the financial services sector is a very high proportion of GDP in the UK. So the UK has been more affected than other countries by the crisis we've been through, and will make its way through. But again, our business model in the UK is also relatively insulated from that, because we fundamentally have millions of people who have saved with us, and what we do is serve their pensions, and that is something we're able to do because it's a long-term business, and which is relatively insulated against the short-term fluctuations of the economy.
Tidjane Thiam, thank you so much for joining us here today. The CEO there of Prudential.